Go ahead, Chair.
Good morning, everyone. Call the meeting to order, and I'll proceed to do the land acknowledgement. On behalf of the board, I would like to acknowledge the land we are meeting on today is the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Chippewas of Georgina Island and the Mississaugas of the Credit. These lands are now home to many diverse Indigenous peoples. We also acknowledge that York Region falls under Treaty 13, Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties, with several Mississauga and Chippewas First Nations. Disclosure of interests. I see none and I hear none. Chair, I need to move. I need to move a seconder to approve the minutes of September 22nd, 2021.
Move.
Kala?
Yes.
Second, right? Do we have a seconder? Do we have a seconder?
Norma?
Yes, that's, no, you're moving it. Jen,
Yes.
would you like to move that, second that?
Yeah, I second it. All
All those in favor? Against,
Yes.
motion carries. We now move to a presentation. It's Inspector General Policing Devin Clunas, Deputy Inspector General Ken Wetherill, and Executive Data Officer Michelle Lloyd from the Ministry of Solicitor General will present to the board on the mandate of the Inspectorate of Policing. So welcome, everyone. I guess everybody's here. We're looking forward to your presentation. It's going to be, I'm sure, a very, very interesting one. I know that we at the board, we're looking forward to this day. So you may begin at any time when you're ready.
Well, thank you. Good morning to all of you. Thanks for making time for us this morning. I can't see everyone on the screen at this point, so I'm going to try to introduce everyone from the inspectorate who's here with us. But just thank you so much for making time. We've had the pleasure of meeting with your chief and executive staff previously, and we really wanted to spend some time with the board this morning. So my name is Devon Clunas, Inspector General. From the inspectorate, I believe Karina, communications expert, is here. I believe I saw GD, who's your police services advisor. And then Lisa, who is our executive assistant. And then our executive data officer, Dr. Michelle Lloyd, who we'll hear more from very soon. And then Deputy Inspector General Ken Wetherill. And we really wanted to spend a little time with you because we know that the CSBA is coming into effect sometime next year, and it's going to have a significant impact on the future of policing in the province. And certainly, I think many times when we hear people speak about the CSBA, they think the inspectorate itself will be coming in to be, for example, the police of the police or the police of the board. And really, that's not exactly the way that we see it. We really want to create a strong relational environment within the framework of the CSBA to really help us all work collectively to achieve something that I know all of us desire, which is safe, healthy relationships between police and communities, because we really believe like effective policing is so integral to civil society. So we just want to spend some time, share our perspectives with you this morning. Having said that, I will turn the floor over to Dr. Michelle Lloyd to say a few words. Michelle.
Thank you, Devon, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself and why I joined the Inspectorate of Policing. I started off my career in academia with a master's in biochemistry from Queen's University and my PhD in medical genetics from the University of Toronto. I then spent the next 15 years in healthcare in several leadership roles at CAMH, RNAO, and Health Quality Ontario, where I led development of Ontario's first performance measurement framework for primary care, building consensus across 60 different stakeholders, and coordinated an international community health survey for the province, aligning with other provinces across the country. Most recently, I was Director of Quality Management at Cancer Care Ontario, where I oversaw creation of minimum data sets and supported the evaluation of the pilots for lung cancer screening programs, leading an evaluation, analytics, research, and evidence development team to support the implementation of the 3 provincial cancer screening programs. I'm really excited to join the Inspectorate to be able to use data and evidence in the same way, but in a different sector. Looking forward to working with all of you to be able to support the identification and creation of measures of board and police services success that reflect community safety from the perspectives of the police services, the boards, and the communities that they serve. Supporting the identification of best practices and success stories that can be shared and support the scale and spread across the province and across the country. Building a performance measurement framework for community safety that reflects on and builds consensus from the boards, police services, and the communities that they serve. So I'm really excited to join the inspectorate and to work with all of you, not just because I am a York region resident, but to use data and evidence to promote policing excellence, public confidence, and equity in policing in Ontario. So thank you for the time to tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll pass it over back to you, Devon.
Thank you very much, Michelle. As you heard, Michelle brings just a wealth of experience and knowledge and the local experience to the inspectorate. And so really looking forward to working with Michelle to help really transform the narrative of what we're dealing with today. Now I'll turn the floor over to Deputy Inspector General Ken Weatherhill. Ken, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Devon, and good morning, everyone. Chair, members of the board, Chief, Deputy, Senior Command, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you this morning. I come to the inspectorate having spent 35 years in policing in the province of Ontario. I spent my first 31 years in Hamilton, leaving there as a deputy chief, and then had the opportunity to move up to Barrie and serve there for the next 4 years as a deputy chief, a community where I was born and raised, where much of my family still resides. It's certainly a memorable experience, one for me that, to serve a community that has for such a long time served my family so very well. There's three significant takeaways that I've learned over my career that has really guided my course to the position where I am today in the Inspector of Policing. And the first one is, for the most part, regardless of what community you live in Ontario and nationally for that matter, people want to live in a community that is safe. They want a space that they can raise their family, they can go about their day-to-day business without fear of crime or incivility or interruptions along that path. But there is a recognition that crime exists. And that crime is very similar when we take a look at the size of municipalities, whether they be a community of 5,000 or a community of 2.5 million. What changes is the scope and the volume of that crime. How do we address that crime is a situation where police services and boards and communities have been working on for a number of years, I would say since the beginning of time. And what really stands out for me is the ability to solve those community, that shared responsibility of solving crime is a joint responsibility built on relationships. Along the path, occasionally the community has different expectations and deliverables than the service who has expectations and deliverables. And it's not that they don't want the same outcomes at the end of the day, but oftentimes they're not talking the same language. One neighborhood, one community, one group that connects with an individual within a police service, and that individual in the police service moves on, or that connection in the community moves on, you've lost that relationship with that specific neighborhood or that specific community, which is why it's so critically important that those relationships are embedded into the organization from the top right down to the front line, and that it becomes and forms part of the culture of an organization and culture of a community, that willingness to get to know each other and to build those solid, lasting relationships. The second thing the next thing that stands out for me is the inequities that we see across the province. And those inequities are most evident when we start thinking about some of the geographical challenges across the province of Ontario, the very vast, very remote areas. So when we think about rural and remote Eastern, Western, and Northern Ontario, we really see some of the challenges for serving the community from a public safety perspective. There are areas within your region that are very much rural. That response doesn't happen within 2 or 3 minutes. It takes upwards of sometimes 10 or 15 minutes to get there. Imagine those areas in Northern Ontario where it can take up to hours to get there and up to days to get some of those additional resources that are required for some of those complex investigations that might surface. The next piece that when we think about inequities is in the space of funding. Funding is not necessarily equal from the lens of the chief's office, the lens of the board's offices, when we consider all 43 municipal services and the OPP and our First Nations policing partners across the province. That funding, I've sat at those tables, I've heard those discussions, and the first question is, why does all the funding end up in the GTA? And I know that you are part of the GTA. I was part of the GTA when I was in Hamilton. But you still ask those questions. Why didn't I get my fair share when I still suffer from opioid crisis? I suffer from gangs and gangs issues. I suffer from human trafficking. And all of those issues are very relevant to everyone in this province. And sometimes those questions of disparity and equity of that funding is realized, not realized in some people's lenses as being equal. And finally, as it relates to the ability to provide the service that the community is looking for. And this became really relevant for me when I went up to Barrie and formed part of the small and mid-sized services, similarly to the Big 12 meet, the small and mid-sized services meet. And it became very apparent to me that when a chief was sitting there at the table and say, I am really stretched, I am really taxed, because throughout my day, I'm changing my hat a half a dozen different times. And so is my deputies, and so is my senior command, and so are my frontline civilian and sworn members. Those hats are changed because they don't have the ability, based on their size, to walk down a hallway, pick up a phone call, call another commander or deputy and say, I need a task force to deal with this particular issue. They don't have those assets available to them. So anyone at any given day is changing hats in order to deal with some of the challenges that are presented in their communities that they police. So these are the takeaways for me, having spent 35 years in policing, that I bring to the inspectorate, that I think will be very critical in helping to address some of the challenges across the province, and the role that we will play to support boards, to support services, and to support communities as we all endeavor to transform policing to deliver public safety. So thanks very much for the opportunity to meet with you today, and I turn it back to Devon.
Thank you very much, Ken. So like Ken, I have over 3 decades in this policing arena. I have to tell you, I'm incredibly passionate about policing because I'm incredibly passionate about having safe, healthy communities for all of us to live in. And it was that desire that led me into policing in 1987. I didn't police in the beautiful province, I policed in Winnipeg. And I went into policing in 1987 simply because I didn't like what I saw as the popular narrative at the time, that people who looked like myself and police could not have a good relationship. I didn't feel that that had to be the reality. So when I had never seen a police officer look like Devon Clunis in our city, I said, I'm going to become a police officer because I think we can build relationships. So I joined the Winnipeg Police Service, and I can tell you, I was just so pleased with what I saw within the organization, within policing. I was very much welcomed, and I had the opportunity to build those external relationships with all partners across the entire community. And for the first 25 years of my career, I took a very personal approach that I individually can build those bridges, build those linkages and connections. And I was really fortunate over the course of my career to get promoted up the ranks. And in 2012, found myself in the position of chief of police in the city of Winnipeg. And I thought, what if my own personal views could now become the views of the organization, and that we can be so much more than police officers, we can be community builders. And so I had engagement right across the entire organization. So almost the entire 2,000 members of the organization had an opportunity to see me face to face, and I would put this question in front of them. Are you satisfied with the impact that we're having? And not a single member, sworn or civilian, could say yes. They wanted to be able to do more for the community. And then I had the same engagement across our city, and I asked them, what did you want from your police service? And not a single person talked about more policing. They all talked about relationships. And so that's what we challenge ourselves to do, to be catalysts to real meaningful social change within our city. And it was incredible to see what occurred over the next 4 years of my tenure in terms of the reduction in crime, but the incredible growth in community cohesion. And so I retired in 2016 because I honestly felt that we as a society, in terms of Canadian society and policing, we're on a very good track, because it really was becoming about the focus of being more than law enforcement officers, being community builders. And I went off into the consulting world, spent a lot of time in the US, even went home to the home country of Jamaica to help with policing there. And it just really struck me that, and I always like to stress that I'm not saying that Canada is perfect or Canadian policing is perfect. However, Canada is an exemplary country, and the policing that we do here is quite exemplary. And sometimes in your own backyard, you don't realize that you're somewhat special. And so I determined in 2020, at the start of 2020, I would love to come back to our country and spend more time here, reinforcing what we have, magnifying the good while we actually rectify the deficiencies. And then May 25th of 2020, the world erupted with the murder of George Floyd. And I knew immediately it would have a significant spillover effect on policing, not only in our country, but right across the globe. And it didn't take long for media internationally to start calling me, Devon, to see, what do you have to say about this? And initially I thought, it really isn't my place, because I'm no longer a servant police officer to speak. But as a community member, I thought, yes, it is. And so I started to speak about the fact that there is a better path forward for all of us, that Canadian policing is exemplary, that it's perfect. There are things we can and should do better, and we will, but let's not just paint us with one brush and start seeing this divide that was being driven between police and community, you know, it suddenly became race-based, all of those pieces. I didn't think we need to be at that place. And so when I was approached again in August of 2020 about this particular position, clearly I was not looking for a job, and I was really frank with anyone who asked, not looking for a job. But if this can be about a purpose of really helping us to see the value of effective policing and the fact that Canadian policing, yes, is exemplary, not perfect, we will and can do better, but let's really amplify the positives while we deal with the negatives. And so that's why I took on this role, had a great opportunity then sort of a conversation with Ken and saw how much our vision for the future of what policing can be really aligns. Michelle is now on board, seeing that marrying from what she has from, you know, the civilian, the private sector with her experience and knowledge. I really believe we can craft something in Ontario that can be a template for the entire country, all of North America and the globe, about how we do effective policing and community and just build something meaningful for all of us moving forward. So that's why we're here. I think you can see it's really not a job for us. It's about a purpose of changing the narrative and helping to heal this incredible wound that's opened up broadly in all of society. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to say a few words. We'll take any questions or comments that you might have at this point.
Inspector General, after those comments, I feel it's necessary to really thank you for answering the call. I always say that positions like yours are not really a job. You're answering a call, and a call that is extremely important in the area of governance and policing and the work that you are doing. And by the sounds of things, you have also a great team with you, which I think is going to achieve great things at a time when we actually need it. I mean, I think you clearly pointed out that perhaps the view of policing is not as positive as should be, but the reality is that we need people like you who have gone through the system, who have acquired international experience, who really feel, because I believe it, you know, it's just not just a matter of how the brain works in people. It's also whether the heart and mind of the individuals are connected. And I sense that this group is all in, and it's great to see people that show this type of dedication and commitment during these challenging times. I mean, we are facing challenging times in policing, but it's great to see an Inspector General that reminds us of the fact that there are many positive elements to policing here in Canada and the province of Ontario, and indeed in our own region here in New York region. So thank you so much for that. It's I'm sure that my colleagues, they were listening to you and your team speak. They drew a lot of hope and optimism from what you're saying. And you're well placed. You're in a position where you can, in fact, bring about positive change, and also you can be an authority on the narrative, and that to me is fundamental. I think that the narrative is key during this time, and so I simply wanted to thank you. And Michelle, I want to thank you so much for your wisdom in choosing the area where you live. I think that says a lot.
Well,
Ken, you didn't tell me where you lived, so but I'm sure
I do live in Vaughan.
You're from Vaughan, Michelle?
Yes, I am.
That makes perfect sense, because after all, that was a very intelligent and coherent comment to me. So I'm not surprised you're from Vaughan. Okay, so let's open it up for Q&A here, because I think it's a great opportunity for the board to ask some questions. You know, some of the challenges they're facing. You heard what the Inspector General and his team has said. So I think that it's a good time to, you know, address some of the concerns that we collectively have shared amongst board members. Anybody would like to put their hand up? Chair Emerson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Babalakwa. Thank you all three for coming today and your team to present to us. Just a couple comments and a question to Ken. The comments, I don't believe all the police services boards are equal. I believe there are some issues with other ones out there, and I believe what we've done in York Region under the leadership of the command team, especially Chief McSween, have done an excellent job. We just had a survey presented to my senior management at York Region, and policing used to be, years ago, one of the top three that people were concerned about. Now it was the top three was housing, COVID, and transportation, transit. Policing is down the line now because I believe the public have got great confidence in our policing service in York Region. So with that being said, Ken, my question to you is, you talked about funding, and yes, we all want more funding, but we're not getting it. We're losing funding every year when we go to our budget, and we're actually going to be doing our budget today, tabling it. We're not getting the funding from the federal government to help with guns and gangs, and we're losing funding from the province of Ontario. We can't do it all on the property tax. The property tax, yes, it provides a lot of it. I think the chief's budget now is close to $350 million, but a lot of it is through our officers and our police force. So you said that everybody wants more funding, but I'm not sure the funding is really directed to where it needs to be in some areas. Some areas are more, example, Toronto and Peel, they get a lot more guns and gangs down there than maybe what we do. But when they start to move north, and they'll move east and they'll move west. So there is an issue regarding funding, and I'm not sure. Yeah, we can't throw millions of dollars at it, and we'll take what we can, but we'll put it in the right places. And matter of fact, we're hiring, I think another 20 or 30 police officers in this budget year. So we're still continuing to grow. We're supposed to be one of the fastest growing municipalities in Ontario, if not Canada. But we do need help with funding, and it is coming. It is getting a big number for us to continue on. So those are my comments, Devin, and I'm just saying that thank you for coming. But I do think that when we're in the GTA, there are more pressures than there are outside the GTA. And so I think if we could look at the funding, and like I say, I'm very proud of the York Regional Police Services. I've been ever since I was elected many years ago, I've been very proud of our ability to be part of the communities, and we are out there doing it, part of the communities. We're actually looking to see where we can come into diversity and that. And I think we need to have more sessions with the people on the ground so we can understand as a police services board what are our issues in York Region. I think that's key to us. What are our issues for diversity in that? But anyways, thank you, Chair Babalakwa.
Thank you. Thanks for those comments, Chair. Ms. Fang, go ahead.
Thank you, Maurizio. Welcome to York, Devin and team. And I just have some quick comments and then a quick question, please. I think I'm really glad to hear your approach in terms of a relationship-driven, holistic approach, looking at policing issues and make improvement. And also, I'm very glad to hear the evidence-based, data-driven approach under Michelle's leadership in guiding policy development. So these are highly welcome, and we all understand it's a daunting task, and glad that you take this as a purpose, and we share that purpose. So I'm wondering if you can share with us your top 3 objectives, because we all have to start from somewhere in the next 12 to 24 months, please.
Absolutely. So, I started in this role a year ago. I was a 3rd person into the inspectorate. We're now up to 31, building our way up to ultimately 65. But you can imagine right now it's hiring the team, building it, putting all the infrastructure behind what will ultimately be the face of the inspectorate. So writing policies, procedures. We've met, as I said, with chiefs right across the entire province. We're doing the same process with the boards. And we hope in time to be able to now do the very similar process with the community. So all of this work is actually quite intensive. And just yesterday we were saying it's really not what most of us were accustomed to doing. You come here to do the work, but there's all the building that has to take place. But in terms of once the inspectorate is up and running, the reason why we're doing this engagement is that the last thing I would like to do is say, here's our strategic priorities. Our strategic priorities should actually serve the policing community, the boards, and the broader community. And the only way we can ensure that we're doing that effectively is first by engaging and listening. So that's critical for us. So yes, I could easily pick a couple of things of saying that's key priorities, but I want our priorities, and the inspectorate needs to serve the broader community. And the only way we can be sure of that is first to do the proper consultations, listen, and then come forward. So my key priority at this point in time is to ensure that we're properly engaging so that when we finally say, here's the roadmap, it makes sense to everyone here.
Anyone else with a question? Mr. Purcell, go ahead. Thank you.
Welcome all. Thank you for your presentation. You spoke about shaping the narrative, changing the narrative, but as I see it, what you're really doing is trying to do something far greater than that. You're actually pursuing culture change. Could you offer your thoughts on what you see as your key mechanisms or your key priorities with respect to culture change of what is historically a conservative institution or conservative institutions, if you will?
Without a doubt. I can tell you, when I was a chief of police, I remember traveling across this country, having conversations like this with senior leaders, looking ahead and saying, here's where we need to move. And I can tell you at that time in the room, oftentimes we'd have much more senior leaders than myself in terms of chiefs of police who would say, yes, we're just not there yet. I think the key thing I want to communicate is that the policing community, not just here only in Ontario, but right across the country, is ripe for that change. When you sit and you have conversations in those rooms now, you're hearing police leaders who are saying, yes, we want to move, here's where we want to go. And I think the biggest potential or opportunity for us is to ensure that we're communicating this message out, broadly speaking. I don't think there really right now is a clear understanding of the nature or the culture of policing right now. And sometimes when we use the term culture change, I often say, we need to actually narrow that down. What specifically are we speaking about? Because when I think about policing culture, I think about the fact that every day a member will put on their uniform, go out there, put their lives on the line for any citizen. That's a phenomenal piece of policing culture that I don't think we want to change. There are things that must be rectified, but when you use a broad brushstroke, like we need to change the culture of policing, I don't really think that's helping us narrow down on what we really say we want to change. So yes, there's ways that we recruit, the type of information that we deliver to police recruits in the academy that needs to change. As I said, you know, the way that we even see ourselves as police officers in the past was primarily law enforcement officers. So those pieces of the culture, yes, but I'd much rather pick those specific pieces than simply saying we need to change the culture of policing, because the culture of policing, generally speaking, in terms of what it brings to society, is very positive. So let's pick the pieces that we say is not working for police officers or for citizens, and let's tackle that. But you need to know the leadership across this country in terms of policing, they're speaking the same language. And as Ken mentioned, oftentimes we're just not communicating effectively. So we understand that we're actually driving towards the same end goal. So the key for me is ensuring that we're communicating very similar to what we're doing here now, but we need to take it more broadly within the public arena and have this two-way constant communication feedback. In the past, we've been very isolated. And I can tell you, having been a police leader, yes, we were very isolated. It was, we're the police, we know what we're doing, and we'll tell you. But to a great extent, that's also what the community demanded of policing back then. So it shifted. The expectations have shifted. Police leadership has actually shifted. Now we need to get both together to realize we're actually speaking, as Ken said, the same language. Let's move forward. The intent that we desire is the same.
Thank you.
Anyone? Thank you, Mr. Purcell. Any other question? Yes, Ms. McCall. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you all for coming and shedding some light on your intentions for Police Services Board and the wider community. So my quick comment and question built into one is changing the narrative in the community, I see, is really imperative right now. So engaging with the community, will you be involved in that change and helping that narrative along. The institution of policing is a very special one. And in general, the community will speak, and it's just a very small pocket of community, in my experience, that had been willing to speak to or with police.
Mhm.
Now they're more open to speaking to policing or police. The work that police does is very, very specialized.
Mhm.
It's one of intimidation for a lot of people, still see it as that. So how do you see this changing? The community engagement, I mean, York Region has always been a leader in community engagement. I've got to say that. And they have been engaging with community for a long, long time. But what do you see, or how do you see that change?
Okay, so I told you I went into policing because, you know, what you just described was very much the climate in 1987 that I saw growing up as a young person, that it is about fear. We have to fear the police. And I can tell you, a couple nights ago, I was speaking to a group of future educators, individuals who are now in university. And one of them stood up and said, Devon, 25 years ago, and this was, they use the term racialized, a Black person saying this to me,
Right,
25
yeah.
years ago, you came to my school and spoke. And prior to that, I was afraid of police officers, but because you spoke, the fear was gone. This is what we need to do. And sometimes people are looking, you know, society might be looking for an easy answer, but I'll take it back to what Ken said. It is about the relationships, and we need to continuously work at establishing relationships. That's why I said, if we, in terms of being police officers, see ourselves differently and our role differently, that we're here to build relationships with the community consistently, and we change the way we interact, that is exactly what will happen. But we also need to communicate that broadly to the public, because you're right in that mindset is that when a police officer shows up, oftentimes before even a word is spoken, there is that fear. And it does not have to be that way. So the change that we're speaking about here, and oftentimes people say we need to change policing culture, but we need to also change the understanding within broader society, right? It is a two-way street. It will never happen if we simply say policing must change, policing must change. No, we collectively as a society have to change. And it starts with that relationship and having communication and building that understanding. It will not happen overnight because of a policy or a procedure. It is about having communication and this relationship. Critically important. And let me say this, I'll say that in this venue. We have to understand that the face of this country is changing. There are individuals like myself who, when I arrived from Jamaica, do you think there is that sense of a relationship between police and community? Think about this honestly. There are a lot of newcomers to our country who are coming from areas of the world where there's no thought of having a relationship with police. And so we need to be very proactive in building that. That's the future of our country. And it means it doesn't happen because we change a policy or we say culture needs to change in one institution. We as a society have to change. And the only way we'll accomplish that is by building relationships, continually communicating, amplifying the positives while we deal with the challenging positions, not hiding from it. That is where we're going.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question? If not, Inspector General, I'm going to give you an opportunity. There are people that have, you know, communities that we represent, and I want to give you an opportunity. If you have to relay some very key messages to those following us today about your role and about the importance of it as it relates to them as members of the community, what would you tell them? What are the three takeaways that they should leave with?
I would say this, you know, and I mentioned it just earlier. The future truly belongs to every single one of us. Think about what actually helps to create a safe, healthy, civil society. Without policing, I don't think we'll have any of the things that Ken spoke about, that you want to grow up in a very safe environment. You can go out, you can walk, you just know it's good for your family. That's what we all ultimately desire. How are we going to get there? We have to have strong, healthy policing with that relationship with the community, but there needs to be a very clear understanding of the value. We need to be very proactive in times when there's no real difficulty occurring between police and community, right? We need to be constantly building that relationship. And when difficulties do arise, let's point to the difficulty, the situation itself. Let's do the analysis of the situation rather than trying to use a broad brush approach to saying, well, because this situation occurred and maybe an individual in uniform has let us down, that means the entire policing community has let us down. I think we all fail when we take that type of approach. And I'm speaking again as a citizen, recognizing the importance that this institution plays to create a ripe environment that we all desire moving forward. If you go back to what occurred on May 25th of 2020, you see how quickly we went the other way in terms of the discord and what it caused in society. And I can tell you, every single one of us, we hurt when we see something like that taking place. And if we can remember that we have so much more in common that actually unites us, we need to focus on that and move forward through those real difficult situations. That will be my message. And that's why the inspectorate is here. And I said, it's not coming in to be the police of anyone. It's coming in to be that bridge builder. And yes, we have our mandate, but what we want to do is point to excellence and actually help every single one of us achieve that excellence.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know what, my takeaway from this, above and beyond what you just said, is that our police services board is very aligned with you and your values, principles, and beliefs, and our actions will be aligned with that. But I'm also, you know, I just had a conversation with Chief Maswini just a few days ago, and we were precisely speaking about the issues that you've raised. And as chair of the board, I'm really happy to see that there is this alignment, because when there is alignment, great things can occur. I know that the chief and his senior team and the entire team is very, very keen to bring about that cultural change that the people are calling for. And I know he's very dedicated to that mission. And as a matter of fact, I just see his hand up right now, which is a perfect segue. Thanks, Chief. And this, by the way, this was not rehearsed. This was genuine and authentic. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Hello, Mr. Clunas again. Nice to see you. And I see you've broadened the team, so that's excellent. I really do believe the collaboration you speak about and the engagement with the community and with key stakeholders is going to be critical for us as our organization and to the board. And I hope I'm not taking up any board time here, but I just wanted to, it's actually really a request. We are in the process of building a professionalism, leadership, and inclusion office, which reports directly to me. And I see the Inspector General's office and your team as key stakeholders for that. So sort of just a request that if you're okay, I'm going to have someone reach out. We are building a stakeholder list right now as to who we need to consult with. And I see your office as a key stakeholder as we try and move forward. And I heard Dr. Lloyd here speaking, but and you know, when we talk about academia in the world of policing, this is really where I believe it has to go. And that evidence-based focus, you know, our office, where we really see it as values-based leadership development across the board for all of our members, as well as the lens of equity and inclusion through all of our processes. And when you look at a world that looks like that or looks through that, I think we can all see a place we all want to be and all want to work and all want to use to serve the community. So that's the request. And I just wanted to say nice to see you again, and thanks for being here.
Pleasure to see you, Chief. Pleasure indeed. And Mr. Chair, if I could just add, I mentioned earlier about the fact that, you know, 8-9 years ago when I was traveling across this country having conversations, you hear people say, we're not there yet. What your chief just expressed totally testified to what I'm saying. When we now speak with senior leaders, that's exactly what you're hearing. You would not have been hearing that many years ago. And so I say the climate is perfectly ripe for the change that we all desire. So thank you, Chief, for that.
Thank you. Once again, I want to wish you all the very best. You know, you're doing very important work. This is, I'm so glad that, you know, you all stepped up and taken on this challenge, and hopefully we'll have a fantastic cooperation here between us, and anything that we can do as a board to advance some of the concerns and issues that you may have, kindly contact us, because we look at you as a partner, and I think we're in this together. And so I look forward to hearing from you in the future. And as we say these days, be well and stay safe. Thank you. We really enjoyed your presentation. So,
Thank you.
Thanks very much, all.
okay. Ken, okay. Just bear with me for a second here. Okay. We have no deputations today, as you probably noticed on your agenda. We have 5 communications, 6.1 to 6.5. May I have a motion to receive the correspondence of 6.1?
So moved.
Moved by? Oh, yes, Mayor Pellegrini, seconded by Chair Emerson. All those in favor? Against? Motion carries. What about 6.2? I have a motion. Jen, Ms. Fang, Mr. Purchell, all those in favor? Against? Motion carries. 6.3. Do I have a mover for that? Mr. Reinhardt, would you like to do that? Thank you. And Mayor Pellegrini, all those in favor? Against? Motion carries. 6.4. Mr. Purchell, seconded by Ms. McCalla. All those in favor? Against? Motion carries. 6.5. I have a mover for that. Mayor Pellegrini, seconded by Ms. Fang. All those in favor? Against? Motion carries. Now we have consideration and adoption of reports. And, we're using a consent agenda here. So there's item 7.1 to 7.5. But I think we should have the presentation for sure on 7.1. Which other items would you like to call? Mr. Purchell?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, we're going to have the presentation, obviously. We know everybody, I'm sure, would like to hear that. And 7. Okay, so the only item right now is 7.1.
Mr. Chair, if I believe there's a presentation that says 7.3, so I will move 7.2, 7.4, 7.5 to receive
Okay.
and support the recommendations, and then pull item 7.1 and 7.3 for the both presentations going
Perfect.
forward.
Thank you so much, Chair. And that's seconded by Mr. Purchell.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yes, thank you so much. All those in favor? Against? Motion carries. So now we're at 7.1 and 7.3. We'll hear.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If you're turning it to me for this report, I will, obviously, this is our public presentation of the 2022 operating and capital budget. I have both the manager of financial services, Jeff Channel, and the assistant manager, Sunita Airy, in our boardroom, and it looks like they're sharing now. So I'll turn it right over to Jeff and Sunita, and then we can answer any questions as we go.
Thank you and welcome, everyone.
Hi, thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to the board. I just wanted to confirm that you're seeing our slide in a full screen. Yes, I'm getting nods. Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you to the board. I'd like to start today's discussion by thanking the board for their feedback. This budget presentation incorporates the feedback received at our last meeting. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Sunita Airy, and I'd also like to spend a minute and thank the dedicated and hardworking budget team, led by Supervisor Lindsay Liu and financial analyst Vicky Wu, Andy Jiang, and Samantha Rakowski. So with that, we have about a 20-minute presentation where we will walk the board through the budget proposals. And they include how the budget meets the needs of our community and our people within the 2020 to 2022 business plan, We'll provide an overview of the costs of service delivery. We'll continue that cost theme by talking about the operating budget, which is a tax levy impact of a proposed $376.8 million. Well, Sunita will then walk us through the capital budget, which is a request of $32.8 million and a 10-year forecast for financial planning purposes of $214.4 million. And finally, we'll talk about timelines that are outlined in the recommendations of the report. We received some feedback from the community about the budget process that asked for clear engagement between the community's needs and wants and our budget. And that starts with discussing our 2020 to 2022 business plan. And between 2017 to 2019, York Regional Police conducted a series of workshops, focus groups, digital town hall events, in addition to community and business surveys to allow community members and other stakeholders to provide input and to inform the business plan. The business plan was organized to address needs around the pillars of our people and our community. So this slide shows budgeting to meet the needs of our community. And again, it's based on feedback from the community. There is a series of items here. I'll just highlight some of the key takeaways from the slide, starting on the far left with community engagement. And this is a first of its kind, interactive human learning at the new human rights education classroom at the Community Safety Village. Under the column of operational service delivery, this budget includes 6 people around organized and violent crime. And this includes 2 crime analysts and 4 officers in areas such as confidential human informants, traditional organized crime, cybercrime, and polygraph. And all of these investigative positions are underway to reduce violent and organized crime and reduce the guns and gangs on our streets. Under the collaborative partnerships column, this budget includes funding to support joint force operations across the GTA and across Ontario to, again, lower and make better public safety. It also includes funds for mobile crisis response and mental health work, key improvements that we're seeking in the budget this year. And over on equity and inclusion, the budget supports the inclusion strategy. There are 4 peers to it, including our employment, including recruitment, selection, and hiring practices, professional development and training, as well as communications for accessible messages, and service delivery, programs and services to the public to support inclusivity and are delivered in a format that is fair, respectful, and equitable. Over to the next slide, talking about budgeting to meet the needs of our people. And I'll start again on the left-hand part of the slide under professional development, and we are closing in on awarding our people and talent system, which is going to be having a huge impact internally, and we're looking for implementation of that and paying for that in 2022. Under the member support tab, a new wellness center, and this is all being directed through a 5-year wellness strategy prepared by Dr. Kyle Handley. The third item down there is that professionalism, leadership, and inclusion office that will be led by Superintendent Ed Villamere that the chief spoke to previously. And under the technology and innovation and continuous improvement columns, I just wanted to bring out a couple of items. I know the board is familiar with many of these initiatives, but the customer service enhancement system, and this is a spider tech, and this is providing some real-time chat box type service with our community, making huge improvements to making it really a 2021 version of interacting with police. I also wanted to bring out the next item down, business intelligence tools to support evidence-based policing. And you're going to be seeing a presentation shortly by my colleague and friend, Greg Skimuski, showing you about the board's latest investments and how there'll be huge improvements to transparency about how the public can access policing data, both for York Region, drilled right down to your street level. And finally, under continuous improvements, I know the board is aware of the Next Gen 911, which is a mandated improvement to accept text and video through 911. We're partnering with York Region on the implementation of that project. And skipping about halfway down that list, there's a series of improvements to improve online requests For our information management unit, that includes an additional audit unit and additional chat box. So a lot of going on in this budget to reflect the business plan. This next slide moves into some of the performance challenges that we're facing and that we're planning to address through this budget. And that starts with organized crimes, where we have seen a 5-year increase of 308%. And what that means is in 2016, we had 886 incidents. That's grown to over 3,617 incidents by 2020 for organized crime incidents. Shooting incidents have gone up from 17 in 2016 to 61 by 2020. Cybercrime incidents, again, increases from 1,140 incidents in 2016 to 2,714 by 2020. And violent crime increases from about 6,800 incidents in 2016 to over 8,800 incidents by 2000. And there's a connection here. And the connection is the guns on the street. And you can see the 68% number. We've gone from seizing 85 guns in 2016 to seizing 143 guns in 2020. And that impacts our costs. It impacts our costs for investigative overtime hours, which is up 46%, as well as wire room interception costs, up over 20%. Moving over to the costs in the operating budget, you're seeing the big pie on the left-hand side of the slide, just under $416 million in gross expenditures. The key takeaway from this chart is that the percentages really aren't changing through this budget. Still 86%, the big gold area, around salaries and benefits to pay for 2,377 existing staff, as well as the 27 additional staff requested in this budget, a growth rate of just over 1%. A general program, financial, and occupancy are the remainder of the costs, as you can see, ranging between 3% and 6% each. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the outcomes since the May 26, 2021 meeting. At that meeting, the board received correspondence from Treasurer Laura Marabella calling for an operating reduction from our prior year outlook by about $2 million. And this is all established to meet the direction received by her from council. The request required a review to develop more efficient ways of delivering existing programs and services, adjusting some levels of service and scaling back planned increases in certain areas. The proposed 2022 operating budget was edited for compliance and as follows. First of all, under efficiency and savings, and that totals $722,000. First of all, we took a reduction in additional staff. We originally outlooked 34 staff. The reduction to 27 staff resulted in a savings of about $200,000. We also had a $500,000 reduction in operating expenses, and we spread that reduction between software maintenance, vehicle maintenance, fuel, cell phones, and a number of other miscellaneous accounts. We also had service level adjustments totaling $440,000. And this was a reduction to pandemic-related temporary common expenditure reductions. Again, a temporary reduction due to the pandemic, as well as training reductions around Project Breakthrough. And finally, risk tolerance, which is the largest item that we edited. And this is a new draw of $767,000 from the sick bank reserve, and this recovers the cost of retiree sick bank payouts. And again, we're starting this reserve in 2022, and it's part of a 3-year planned phase out of the reserve. And next slide, please. This slide shows where the new money is going. So the incremental request for the 2022 operating budget is $16.2 million, of which $14.6 million is for wage-related costs, represented in the first 2 columns. These wage costs represent 90% of the request. The wage costs include a cost to meet contractual obligations for existing staff, reclassifications, annualization of 2021 hires, as well as additional staff that we mentioned previously. We'll talk about additional staff of where the 27 positions are going on a future slide. Moving over to the $1.3 million, Moving over to the $1.3 million in operating expenses, this is to partially reinstate pandemic-related temporary reductions that we implemented for the 2021 budget. We're bringing back many of those costs. We're adding inflationary increases to key accounts, and we're funding facility costs for our new one district in Newmarket. The debt principal and interest reserve contributions are very minor. It's very modest impact. And I know many of the boards sit on regional council where that's a major lever for the region. It's not such a big lever for the police service. And finally, the revenue impact. And I heard Chairman Emerson's comments with Devon Clunas, and this is where we're actually decreasing revenues. Normally we would have increasing revenues. We have a decreasing revenues, and this is to reflect modestly lower provincial revenues as well as fewer alarm monitoring fees. So over to 2022 additional staff, and similar to recent years, the 2022 proposals take a long-term view or incremental investment approach that we feel is the best way to balance the needs of our community and improve safety while maintaining financial affordability. So the 11 members addressing combating serious and violent crime, we have investigators to our property crimes area, as well as officers to specialty investigative functions. The 11 members for organizational effectiveness, and again, we've got 5 to bolster our HR functions, as well as 3 civilians for our COM 911 center. And then there's 5 members to advanced learning and development. 4 of them go to practical skills for additional training needs, as well as 1 to our academics unit. And the full cost of this, and I should note that when we do additional staff costing, we gap it, which means we cash flow it, meaning the onboarding or the hiring dates are accounted for in 2022. That means the remainder of the costs are impacted into the 2023 year and outlook. Over 4 years, when they become full costs, that will be $3.9 million for the full cost of these 27 members. And that's about $1 million savings by the 7-member reduction that we made over our outlook. Again, this is over 4 years. The next slide speaks to that on a national scale when compared to the 9 largest municipal police services in Canada. York ranks amongst the safest communities in almost every major crime category. York has the 2nd lowest crime severity index rating, a measure that takes into account not only the volume of crime, but also the severity of crime. In addition, York's policing services are delivered at the lowest net cost per capita amongst municipalities serving greater than 1 million residents. And we do so while enjoying very high satisfaction ratings as measured by community and business surveys. The board might notice the change between 2nd lowest and 3rd lowest for crimes against persons. And this budget includes 4 members for crimes against properties, crimes against persons to address those issues. Next slide, please. And this slide shows the relationship between cost and performance on one slide. The gross cost per capita is shown on the left-hand side, Vancouver having the highest gross cost per capita. And you can see amongst Canada's largest municipalities serving 1 million people, York remains the lowest, and we've been the lowest for several years at 336 gross cost per capita. On the right-hand side is the crime severity index for those same jurisdictions. You can see the high in Edmonton at 116, and York has the 2nd lowest to Peel at 39. Again, very good. And we're trying to establish here very low costs, very high results. Every budget, there are a number of assumptions that represent financial risks to the board. York Region holds reserves to hedge against the most exceptional risks, and they include a pandemic management reserve. They include a fiscal stabilization reserve to fund temporary revenue shortfalls, as well as a tax stabilization reserve for unforeseeable one-time expenditures. There are a number of key risks. We've highlighted the top 3, and I'll just roll through them for you. On the revenue side, we continue to see weakness in 2021. As we've discussed, we have lowered revenues again in 2022 modestly, and we've chosen a blended approach here. So whereas our neighbors at York Region and Transportation are seeing a very large percentage impact to ridership and the revenue impacts, as well as foreseeing a long period of time that they'll need to recover. Police revenues are really not impacted quite the same. In fact, we're down about 7% from our 2021 outlooks, budgeted numbers in 2021. And again, we are modestly lowering our revenue. We are hoping for a bounce back in these revenues into 2022. The second risk is around provincial funding. And in the correspondence that you received a moment ago is a letter from the Ontario Association of Police Chiefs, and that is Chief Khan and he's outlined in great detail some risks around court security, prisoner transportation. And we have a $7.2 million budget on this line item. And I will agree with the conversation this morning that different jurisdictions seem to have a little bit different provincial funding. We do have substantial provincial funding, $7.2 million on this line item. There's another $7.5 million on one of our main grants. So we're running in around $15 million of total provincial funding when all is all in. We also have some legislative impacts, and with the re-election of the federal Liberal government, they have promised to reintroduce Bill C-22, which addresses systematic discrimination, disproportionate representation, and simple possession of illicit drugs. And I'm just quoting from the CACP again. I'll first speak to the adoption of a health-based diversionary approach to disrupt the current trend of drug overdoses and how that it might impact policing. And the CACP writes, frontline officers will always play a critical role in a diversion model because they are often the point of first contact and the ones who will assist individuals into pathways of care. However, for diversionary tactics to be effective, the health and social systems must be available to divert them to. As a result, the enactment of this bill must be accompanied by significant investments at all government levels to support the creation and ongoing operations of an infrastructure of services in communities across the country. They go on to write that the bill creates a clear distinction between possession for personal use and possession for trafficking. But Canadians must remember that not all individuals who face the possibility of a charge for possession are necessarily managing problematic substance abuse. The fact remains that there are also a number of individuals where criminal charges and the judicial process represent the appropriate course of action in the interests of public safety. So with that being said, we do have legislative risks. We are evaluating the impact of C-22, and once we know its timing for implementation, which could be late in 2022, we will have a better handle on what the financial costs might be. Next slide, please. Thank you. And this slide shows future efficiency initiatives, and really to say that the budget, we try to bring forward all of our future initiatives, but they don't always line up with the budget timelines, and they also take some time to prepare. So with that said, we're working on 3 key initiatives that could have impacts into 2023 and beyond. One is the pilot for community support officers in 2022. And this is to assist officers with low-risk calls for service. Again, we've seen that item in Sudbury and other areas, and we're looking and researching into that application at York Regional Police. We're also looking at virtual bail hearings of prisoner management efficiencies, and this is an exciting item that could definitely, by virtual bail hearings, that means fewer prisoners transported and far more efficiency with the criminal justice system. And finally, a pilot project to test flexible day shift and start times. And we are hopeful that through our wellness and our people, that translates into lower usage of sick time and more productive employees. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll hand this over to Sunita to overview the 2022 capital budget proposal.
Thank you, Jack, and good morning. So the capital plan has been developed to provide the infrastructure necessary to deliver quality policing services for the protection of all residents. The 2022 capital budget proposal is $32,774,000. Rebudgeting is the process of moving funding to future years. In 2022, a total of $6.1 million is requested from the 2021 capital budget to 2022. Appendix 3 in your board report identifies the proposed rebudgeted projects to 2022. Some of these projects include a $1.8 million for the new one district facility for the final holdback payments, and due to delivery timelines of digital evidence and management and in-car camera and other projects. The 10-year outlook is just over 214 million. This outlook is $6.7 million over our preliminary planning allocation. And this consists of the $6.1 million that's being budgeted from 2021, an additional 600,000 for net new requests. The 10-year capital budget is comprised of several asset categories. The pie chart on the left identifies the asset categories as a percentage of the $214.4 million total. Vehicle, which includes air operations, account for 61.5 million or 29% of the total. Our facilities are at 29 million or 13% of the total. Information technology in brown there is at 71 million or 33% of the total. Communication equipment at 31.4 million, and our specialized equipment is 10% of the total at $21.5 million. Financing for the 2022 capital budget and forecast to 2031 is a combination of contributions from tax levy funded reserves, including asset replacement reserves and debt reduction reserves. It's from development charges for growth-related projects and external funding from auction proceeds and shared services partners. The funding sources are identified by the chart on the right, and they're also highlighted in Appendix 5 of the board report. We can see from the slide, reserves from operating fund 37% of the 10-year request. This is for the non-growth portion of vehicles, DEMS, ICC, 100% funding for facilities renovations and IT hardware, software, and infrastructure. Debt reduction reserves fund 29% of the ask, and this is for our portable radio and mobile replacement, our business intelligence and talent management projects. Development charges are at 26%. What we're going to see with lower facilities growth, we'll see less reliance on development charges as we move from high growth to replacement. Development charge fund the growth portion of facilities and vehicles. And we also have infrastructure and reserve and external funding at 8%. With Microsoft licensing moving from operating to capital budget, this will be funded by our infrastructure reserve. And external funding is our regional and fire partners' share of radio communication equipment. And we also have the auction proceeds from the current Air 2 sale. I'll highlight a few of the items on the 10-year capital budget based on the asset category. So under information technology for 71 million, this includes our hardware, software, and infrastructure annual refresh totaling 37.5 million. And this includes a Microsoft Office as a cloud solution of $14 million over 10 years. That's being reallocated from the operating budget. With the assistance of the region's controllership office, the costs were capitalized for Microsoft license for consistency with the treatments used by York Region for Microsoft licenses. The proposed transfer of Microsoft costs is fully intended to be funded by the Police Infrastructure Reserve in order to avoid pressure on regional capital financing reserves. This move has also been reviewed and supported by the Regional Treasury Office. Under information technology, we also have our digital evidence management and in-car camera for the Axon agreement and our connected officer project for just over $21 million. This modernization initiative will streamline the evidence management process, increase operational efficiencies, and reduce server storage. We have our computer-aided dispatch software replacement of 3.7 million scheduled for 2026. The software is replaced every 25 years and supports in the dispatch of emergency services. We have smaller projects such as our business intelligence for annual enhancements of additional dashboards tailored to police operations, which provide accurate and timely key performance indicators to enable management to make effective decisions, and also a talent management system to improve the recruitment, promotion, and staff development process. Under the vehicles category, this includes our air operations and our marine boats. So this includes over the 10 years, we have just over $48 million for the annual replacement of vehicles plus vehicle changeovers. Our frontline vehicles are replaced at approximately 180,000 kilometers. Under air operations, this includes the Air 2 replacement, a 7.1 million scheduled for 2022. The budget for this replacement has been increased by $800,000 to change from what was currently budgeted as a used to a new aircraft. We did do our due diligence and prepare an analysis to compare new versus used versus a lease scenarios. There were minor differences between the present value of a new versus used, and this was mainly driven by higher maintenance costs for a used aircraft. And under marine patrol boats, we have 2 replacements. The Admiral scheduled for replacement in 2029 and the larger Wawatesi scheduled for replacement in 2030. Under communication equipment, this is for a radio system replacement starting in 2029. This is replaced every 15 years, as well as portable and mobile radio replacement, which is currently on a 3-year scheduled. And this equipment is also replaced every 15 years. Under facilities, at $29 million, we have renovations to existing facilities as identified by building condition assessments for $11.8 million over 10 years. In 2022, the scheduled projects are repaving and curbing of 2 district, 5 district, and the community safety village. For the purpose of capital outlook, in 2023 and 2025, there's a new project that's been added for $10 million to purchase or build a new premise to consolidate leased premises. Funding was repurposed for a planned 6th district, which is no longer being considered within the next 10 years. In our new 1 district headquarters, we have $4.3 million remaining in 2022 for holdback payments and furniture, signage, and equipment. There's no change to the total project cost of $25.75 million. We have renovations to 240 Prospect, which is our current 1 district. Construction will commence in February, with renovations anticipated to be completed by August of 2022. And then we also have, peer support leasehold improvements as identified in the Lease of Space Board report in the June meeting. And this is for the new wellness center in participation with the Wirepeak. And lastly, under equipment, for $21.5 million, we have over 10 years, $14 million for annual replacement of furniture, uniform equipment, and use of force equipment, including a taser refresh transition plan commencing in 2022. We have a 10-year replacement schedule for specialized equipment for support services and for our road safety equipment, as well as replacement for our interception room equipment under technical investigations, and refresh schedule over 10 years for our forensic equipment. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jeff to discuss or to highlight the key messages.
Thanks very much, Sunita. And each year, the budget provides us, staff, as well as the board and executives, the opportunity to optimize often competing factors of cost, risk, and performance. And again, this year, to meet the financial challenges of the pandemic. So this year, our budget key messages include meeting the needs of our community, as we've discussed our business plan objectives of our people and our community. We've mitigated pressures to allow the treasurer to meet direction received by council. Again, we've repurposed about $2 million of reductions. This budget adds 27 additional staff over 3 areas of combating serious and violent crimes, organizational effectiveness and transformation, and advancing learning and development. As Anita has mentioned, it includes $214.4 million in our 10-year capital outlook. And this provides sound financial planning in accordance with asset management planning principles. And it's all being delivered with good value at the lowest cost per capita for police services serving over 1 million population. And so I'll direct you, Chair, back to the budget recommendations contained within the report accompanying the presentation, where we've asked for $376.8 million. We've asked for an approval of 2022 capital budget at $32.7 million, and that the board approved the 10-year for financial planning purposes capital, and that the board forward this information to the treasurers for his tabling on November the 25th. And with that, Chair, we'll pass it back for any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. And Jeff and Sunita, thank you so much for the work you do. I can tell you I've been involved in budget making for a good part of my life, and I know all the details and all the work that goes into it. And I want in a very public way thank you both and your team for the great work that you do. I was just observing the last slide, the key messages, and looks like a very well-positioned budget. and you're meeting the needs of our community, you're mitigating pressures, you got your 27 additional staff, and the last 2 points are equally important, obviously. But I do think that it's a budget that, of course, is going to be some questions and I'm sure some very profound answers. But I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open it up, and if I need those key messages down now, because otherwise I won't be able to see the people that are asking questions or would like to ask questions. Okay. Okay, so let me guess. I'm sure that Ms. Fang will have questions for sure. So here we go. Open up with Ms. Fang. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mauricio. Thank you, Jeff and Sunita. A wonderful job as usual. And as usual, I have a couple quick comments and clarification questions. And first of all, I assume the 27 additional staff are all uniformed, or they are split between uniform and civilian, please?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Fang. And it is a split, and it's split 12 civilian, 15 sworn this year. Just to give you some background, typically the split includes about 30% civilian, about 70% civilian. That falls in line with our overall. But each year we tweak those splits. In some years there's a higher civilian content, and this year it's again 12 civilian, 15 sworn.
Okay, wonderful. And because I don't know the details of each job functions, but this is just a general comment, drawing from the private sector budgeting. Sometimes we try to say we want to focus on frontline employees, try to improve those market-facing frontline employees versus back office support functions. And I kind of did a rough calculation, and I look at 11 FTEs are definitely focused on combating serious and organized crimes. But then the other two categories, generally, I feel like they are a part of support functions like transformation, effectiveness, and training and education. So the split between front and back office in this way feels about 40-60. And there's no right or wrong. I guess it's just a general comment that I'm sure our leadership team take into consideration of the balance of putting more frontline resources versus back office. Of course, those back office support sometimes is critical as frontline, but it's just a general observation and comment. And then another one, I of course applaud our team and very proud of our region in terms of consistently become the cheapest cost per capita police servicing. And it's just cosmetic, like I've commented this before in terms of comparators. I'm a big believer as to a consistent group of comparators that we compare ourselves to rather than pick and choose. But I also recognize sometimes some of the data that we use, they actually don't have the full suite of comparators that we would like to have. So I did read through the MBNC report in the appendix, where not a lot of our traditional comparators participate in that. Let's limit our comparators there. So maybe an easier fix would be at the presentation slide. I remember there's this one slide with two sides. Maybe we add the Winnipeg into that group, so we kind of have the complete and consistent group of comparators for ourselves. And also, my next one is a comment and a question, please. And I don't expect to be answered today, maybe for future board meeting discussions. Is, of course, we invest significantly on technology. So look at our technology, communication, and if we include equipment, that's over 60% of our capital investment. But somehow I haven't heard anything about cybersecurity. So I'm curious, is it police servicing is not as prone to cyber attack as some of the other industries like financial services. So at some point, I would like to hear our cybersecurity strategies. Maybe they are already embedded in our technology investment. It's just not so obvious. But the other part of the world is dealing with cybersecurity in a very heightened manner. So this is an area I would like to hear a little bit more, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, to Ms. Fang. And I think I will open this up as well to Deputy De Silva. I know that he has a role to play on the IT side. There's really two parts to the answer I'll just leave is, one, we investigate cybersecurity crime, and this budget includes a position, an investigator for that function, which is an ever-growing space. It really is a very large pool of cybercrime that we could be investigating. On the YRP side, of the security side of the house, we do have a planned transition with Microsoft to move into their cloud environment and to change our security profile. But outside of that, maybe I'll hand it to Deputy De Silva for a comment.
Thanks, Jeff. And through you, Board Chair, to Member Fang, our corporate security office does handle all of our security in-house. And the budget presentation that you saw today includes aspects specifically dealing with prevention and every single facet as it pertains to the protection of the information and data at York Regional Police from external threats and actors that may try to penetrate our system. So that is 100% included within the budget process. Did I answer your question, Member Fang?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I also want to, my next two questions. One is in the detailed allocation on the capital side, I see our talent system has kind of 200,000, I think, every year for 10 years. And I know that this is an important initiative for our talent development and management system. I'm just wondering, are we setting up the system at once and then we continue to maintain it, or it would take us 10 years to finish setting up this talent development system? Then it's a little bit too long, in my view, if we can't use a well-established system. And I know people is very important to us. So at some point, I think I welcome a discussion on how the new talent system work with our improved talent development processes and procedures to help our talent development and succession planning throughout the organization. So that's just a comment. And lastly, on funding allocation, I just want to understand, maybe we talked about this before, because it looks about every source is roughly 30%. So is that a strategy that we try to tap into various sources of funding equally, or we first try to exhaust, for example, our tax levy, development charges, then when that is exhausted, and then we come down to operating reserve, then come down. It's like waterfall strategy or equal. Just would like to understand our funding allocation strategy, please.
How about we join?
Jeff, before you go, I just want to comment on the people and talent comment/question. The people and talent strategy is underway and it's being developed. And as you mentioned, Ms. Fang, a lot of the business processes around the development of our talent, the capturing of our talent, and all of the processes that fit within it through staff development right through to promotion are all included in that strategy. That is a long-term strategy that is currently under development. As you may or may not know, we are finalizing the hiring of a new director of our new people and wellness and talent section, which is our HR, our area, staff services. That will all be part of it. And the $200,000 you're referencing is to start with the procurement of a new software, a talent management software system. So that will be in place. The business processes are already underway. A lot of that work's being done now. Some of it's done in terms of job description on the sworn side, different than what we've done on the civilian side. It's a long-term strategy. It will be an ongoing strategy, but the short answer, no, it will not take us 10 years to, we'll start to see these processes change in short order. And I suspect we'll want to come to the board in the new year once we have a new software system to sort of iron out and present to the board what our strategy is. So I don't have a month for that, but we'll definitely be coming forward with that. And for the last question, I'll turn it over to Jeff. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Chief, and through you, Chair, to Ms. Fang's question regarding 2022 capital funding sources. And I'll start first with the development charges column. Again, in this 1 year, it's 31% funded from development charges, and this is regulated through the Development Charges Act, and their specific criteria is to only paying for certain growth-related items. And I want to make a comment that in principle, growth should pay for growth. And in our experience, it's been just shy of growth. It's not quite fully funding growth. So I did want to just mention that piece has a legislative piece to it, and there's a robust formula underneath it as to what can be included in that column for development charge funding. The other two columns around reserves funded from the operating budget, this is a historical treatment where our replacement vehicles, most of our IT, as well as some other projects, are funded from York Regional Police's operating budget into a reserve, from the reserve into the capital project. However, we also have the debt reduction reserve. And what that was is, I'm going to say maybe 8 or 9 budget years ago, the York region transitioned into sustainability and as a goal. And with that transition, they developed this new internal funding source. So the goal over several years, which was achieved many, I guess, 5, 6 budget years ago, was to transition out so that any replacement would be internally financed. So that's exactly what that is. The debt reduction reserve is mostly budgeted under York Region's finance program. But we are beneficiaries of it through our capital plan here. And again, it's about 35% or $11.3 million here in 2022. So I hope that answers the question. I'll certainly answer anything if you have a question or a comment off of my comment.
Thank you. And my last little question on that is just to educate myself, the external funding, although it's very small, but what typical would be the external funding that we have to draw upon, please?
Thank you. And that is sale of equipment. So it's mostly recoveries from proceeds of sales.
Okay, great. That to me still considers internal funding then. Thank you. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, who else? Any other questions? Steve, go ahead.
Jeff, Sunita, in your presentation, you indicated a cost per capita, a very impressive cost per capita, but it differs from the cost per capita indicated on Appendix 1, the municipal benchmarking.
Yes.
So are those different years?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Renaud. And let me just flip to the presentation. So yeah, so they are different years, first of all. So this is a 2020 municipal benchmarking initiative, and the total cost per capita here, again, would be gross costs at 320. So we're showing you a different year.
Okay, so I haven't seen any past cost per capitas for York. Can you tell me or tell us what they were in the last couple of years so we can determine how the costs have compared to inflation?
Yeah, so this year's cost per capita is going up 4.49%. The previous year was 3.21%. And the year before that, I believe, was 3.65. I have to confirm that final number, Mr. Renaud.
So you're saying we're falling behind, right? We're increasing more than inflation per capita.
Yes, that is correct. Typically, our budget line is around 4%. So there are some years where we're below 4%, some years above 4%, but typically that's our average year. What I would say is whether we're falling behind depends on what those other services are doing. And I'll just comment, just yesterday, Peel Region Police, the board approved their budget at 4.8% or slightly above. So I wouldn't say we'd be falling the line behind on, say, that one comparator.
And what's the average police officer's salary increase?
Thank you, Mr. Renan, through you, Chair. So there's a 1% increase scheduled on January 1st of 2022 and a 1% increase on July 1st of 2022. With annualization of the previous year, I believe it averages out at about a 1.935% increase to the average officer. However, what's new starting in January of 2022 is a new frontline premium. And this was negotiated through the last round of bargaining. And there's a certain segment of officers greater than 5 years on the job will receive an additional 1%. It's a 0.5%.
It's 0.5 every 6 months.
Yeah, it's 0.5% every 6 months to be phased in between 2022 and 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Thank you, Steve. Mr. Burchill, go ahead.
I don't want to cross the line here into direction on operations. That these are strictly questions. First one to Deputy Chief De Silva. It's a follow-up question on the entire cyber issue. With respect to your current capability, would you define that as defensive and protective of data? Or would you include in that current capability a forward look anticipating the fact that we will see a dramatic increase in both cybercrime and cyber threats? So threats to the service, but cybercrime as a whole. And are you sufficiently budgeted to anticipate that increasing threat?
Mr. Chair, if I may step in, I would like to put that into in camera. We're talking, this is an open public meeting regarding cyber attacks. And I believe that the York Regional Police, we don't want to tip our hands, no disrespect to Mr. Percher or Ms. Fang, but this is very critical when you start to talk about cyber attacks and things like that. So if you want more information, I suggest that you ask that in private session.
Your point is well taken. I defer my questions.
Okay. Chief, thank you, Mr. Perchill. Thanks, Chair. Chief, your hand's up.
No, it's not.
Oh,
I don't see it. No.
Okay. Mr. Emerson?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a couple comments to start. 4.49% is a lot more than going forward when we're trying to look at cost savings. But I understand, and I will be supporting your budget going forward because we need to keep our police services as well positioned as we possibly can. But I'm hoping that my colleagues around regional council will support it. Jeff and Cynthia, just a couple comments on slide 8. You don't need to bring it up. You've got 7 fewer additional FTEs, and you're only saying you're saving of $200,000. I think you may want to put some footnotes in that, because I don't believe that some of my colleagues may think you got 7 fewer staff that's only going to save us $200,000 because it's only a partial. So I really do believe you need to kind of put a few footnotes on that. Same as slide 13 and 14. You did a very good job explaining all that, but it's on the legislation impact, it's very detailed. And I'm not sure, members of council, I would look at your notes to see where you go with that one. Slide 13 and 14, there was a lot of discussion on where that is. I think you maybe look at it. I don't want to lose council. When you put a slideshow on of 20 to 30 minutes, you got to hit the high points. You need to explain, the high points of the whole process. And then so 13 and 14, but then I also looked at 17. And you did a great job explaining everything. But I look at it and I can understand information technology, vehicles, replacements, radio systems and facilities. I can understand that. So it's good to bring it here to the board to explain. But when you come to regional council, we look at what you need to provide the great service you do now. So I guess that just my comments to you when you start to present this. Your presentation will be done on December the 9th. We do the other committees at council from transportation, environmental services on the 2nd, and then we will approve the full budget on the 16th of December. And the other comment I will make, and it may come up when you show the statistics on slide 11, we are falling behind. We used to be the lowest crimes against property and persons and the criminal code, but now we're falling behind Peel. So it's a little disappointing, especially crimes against persons, but I understand you put some people in here, but I mean, we have fallen behind Durham. I don't believe I've ever seen us behind Durham anywhere, any time, but we are. And that's just the way things are. I'm not saying it's a bad thing when you start to compare other forces, police services. It's sometimes the numbers you got to compare apples to apples, and I'm not sure sometimes we do in this situation because it is a Statistic Canada, and I know some of them don't do this because they don't want to get into it. So anyways, those are just a few of my comments on it. Yeah, you got a great presentation, but I'd only question how deep you get into some of the weeds going forward. Highlights, good to say what's good we're doing on this and what we can do going forward. Your capital budget, yeah, your capital budget is what it is going forward. You got some good stuff in there. There may be a question on why we're buying another helicopter. But that's we're one of the few police services that do have a helicopter, but I do think you may be ready for a question how benefit it is when we have other technology now guarding with those little helicopters flying around. Anyways, those are my comments, Mr. Chair, and I'd be happy to move the recommendation.
Sure.
Because I think it's only fitting that I do move because being the chair of the York Region, I think I need to stand up and be a candidate for the York Regional Police budget. But like I say, we do have to start to look at where we can make more savings going forward. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Anyone else? Any other questions? I see none. I just want to say that it's an excellent presentation. I do think that you capture the essence of what's happening with the police and policing here. I also think that, in life, it's always something that we do. We're always comparing ourselves to others. And I guess from a benchmarking point of view, it makes sense. In my life and the way I work things, I don't compare myself to many people. What I try to do is I try to be the best that we can be as individuals and as an organization, as a city, whatever the case may be. And that to me is really fundamental. Given all the resources that you have, given your very specific circumstances, are we the best that we can be? In other words, let's compete with being the very best that we as an organization can be. Like I have here the major communities comparatives, gross cost per capita and crime severity index. To me, that's one comparator I would use. And I think when you're at 336 compared to Vancouver at 501 and Toronto at 419 and Edmonton at 461, we're using our money and our funding very efficiently. That's what that tells me, and I think that's very important to underline. I agree 100% with the chair and his comments about how we communicate this to York Region. I think that highlights are key. I would go with highlights and a few examples. We're not here, by the way, to give you communication advice because you're very, very good at it. But what we're offering is our understanding of how York Region Council actually functions and works. And I know that Mayor Pellegrini and Chair Emerson will tell you that at the end, we want a panoramic view of what's going on, plus a few examples to sustain the narrative being presented, and that's the way I think, Mr. Chair, I think I'm kind of capturing the essence of how council works. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that are approving the budget. But I took note of what the chair said, and I really agree with the approach that should be taken. Council is looking forward to your presentation. Of course, it's something that we always look forward to because we recognize the important role you play in our community and keeping our community safe. So we have these recommendations are duly moved by Chair Emerson, and who would like to second it? Mr. Purchell, thank you. All those in favor? Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we move to 7.3 Community Safety Portal presentation.
Yep, thank you, Chair. I do apologize for bringing two presentations in one board meeting, not the usual circumstance for us, but as I mentioned, Chair, when we spoke, this portal will be released before our next board meeting. So we wanted to make sure you were fully up to speed on a really exciting opportunity here for YRP. I'm going to turn it over to Paulo to introduce Greg Stanisi. But I just wanted to leave you with this comment. When we all joined the job as police officers when we're young, in the service, one of the things we start to talk about is Sir Robert Peel's principles of policing, and one of the key principles is the police are the community and the community are the police. So as you hear this presentation, as Paulo introduces it here, keep that in mind because I think you're going to see this is really bringing that to life. So Paulo, in saying that, I hope I didn't steal any of your thunder, but I'll turn it right over to you for some opening comments and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Chief, and I appreciate those comments. Good morning to the board and to members of the board and to all of our community watching this morning. We are extremely excited to demonstrate our new community safety data portal to the board and to our community. As the board is aware, York Regional Police have been pioneers and leaders in leveraging data and evidence-based practices within policing. A year ago, we had a vision, and that vision was to replace and transform our existing crime maps through our business intelligence and analytics team and design and develop a new community safety data portal, which would allow our community to participate and engage in community safety and well-being. This new portal is data-driven, it's innovative, it supports greater transparency and community engagement with the goal of fostering community safety and well-being as a shared responsibility. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Greg Stanisi, our Manager of Business Intelligence and Analytics, and Scott Hurst, our Supervisor of Business Intelligence and Analytics, will take you through the presentation overview and demonstration of the new community safety data portal. At the conclusion of the demonstration, we will take any comments and questions the board may have. Over to you, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you for those kind introductions. Great to be here with you all. I will just take a moment to activate my screen share. Hopefully this goes as planned. All right, a couple more seconds here. Is everyone able to see the slide deck? I see some nods, excellent. We'll just adjust my screen a little bit here. And first, I will just like to note again that as Deputy mentioned, Scott Hurst, our team supervisor, is here to ensure our live demo runs smoothly and addresses any project questions if needed. I would also like to acknowledge the great work by our business intelligence team as they brought this vision to life during very challenging times. I'd like to take you through our agenda for the morning or for this presentation. Our philosophy, we'll walk through our philosophy, our approach to the solution, the consultation process, our phase 1 priorities, our phase 2 considerations, the planned public rollout, and most importantly, provide an exciting, hopefully interactive demonstration. So our philosophy for this solution is to use data and technology to encourage community engagement, to promote a shared responsibility for community safety and well-being, and lastly, provide greater transparency around police data and activities. The board would be happy to know that this solution is completely aligned with our current business plan, as it enables us to improve community engagement and increase transparency. It allows us to educate the community and promote our crime prevention programs. It allows us to improve road safety through collaboration, education, and awareness. It allows us to share more information with the community, our business partners, and policing partners. And lastly, it streamlines our ability to provide data to everyone in our community. Our approach was to focus on the key user groups who would benefit most from this new product. The citizens of York Region are at the top of this list. They are interested in the safety of their family, their home, and their neighborhoods. We considered business owners interested in the safety of their employees and customers as well, government and regional partners who are looking to use data to enhance services to key areas across the region, educators and students interested in studying crime and its social impacts, and lastly, of course, all Wirepeak members who will now be able to reference the same data and applications as the community during crime prevention discussions. The team invested a lot of time conducting many requirements meetings with internal departments such as our district commanders, community services, road safety bureau, corporate communications, etc. We also met with many external groups, as you can see listed below, but I would like to take a moment to specifically comment on the 20 beta testers who are community members who volunteered to put this new portal through its paces over the last few weeks. And I also like to thank all of those community members who joined us last week for our town hall and spent almost 2 hours with us learning about the portal and providing valuable input and feedback. It's also important to note that this solution was reviewed internally by our legal and freedom of information departments to ensure we protect the privacy and security of the data and the people of York Region. We also had many meetings with our vendor, Esri, and the region of York with respect to the site's accessibility. And I would also like to take a moment to share some feedback we have received from the community over the last few weeks. For example, 100% of all participants, and we've had over 100 community participants involved, found this site easy to use and an improvement over the old crime map application. The community safety alerts and dynamic neighborhood charting were some of their favorite features. And I'd like to share 3 quotes from some of these engagement opportunities to help you better understand their feelings. So first quote, "I love seeing the evolution of community engagement taking place. My students and academic colleagues will find the data useful." Our second quote, "This new product is impressive, certainly a big upgrade from the previous crime map." And our final quote, "All the key features are present within the portal, great balance of quality and quantity of information." I'd like to once again thank all of these participants who helped us exceed our initial expectations, as I'm sure some of them are watching this presentation this morning. I will quickly summarize a list of our phase 1 priorities. We needed to build a crime map that was very easy to use. We wanted to make sure the community could better understand the crimes that are affecting their own neighborhoods with simple dashboards and embedded crime prevention tips. We needed to integrate our new digital evidence management system to allow the public to seamlessly submit evidence to help solve crimes. We also wanted to provide quick access to community safety resources like the security camera registry, neighborhood watch, etc. Our phase 2 plan is to create a dedicated mobile app with enhanced neighborhood alerts and notifications to continue to embed new crime prevention tips and continue to incorporate feedback from the community in all application enhancements. We are planning to launch the new portal during Crime Prevention Week, which starts on November 8th. This site will be available on wirepeak.ca and will be advertised through our social media platforms as well as mainstream media outlets. And with that, I am ready to commence the live demonstration. So I'm going to switch from this PowerPoint slide deck to the actual portal itself. Just moving our screens over. Okay. And I will start off with the portal's landing page. So for respect of everyone's time, I believe I have approximately 14 minutes where I will try to provide a quick overview of this solution that would normally take about 45 minutes to cover in full detail. So I apologize if this seems rushed. I'll do my best to cover all the great new features on the portal, and I will offer to provide detailed training sessions to anyone interested. Just to reach out to Deputy De Silva or myself if you like. So first of all, this is the landing page for the portal. It is still in beta version until we release this during Crime Prevention Week. I'll walk you through some of the tabs across the top. So you'll see a home tab, our maps tab, a dashboard tab, a help and frequently asked questions section, which is very detailed and offers the community a lot of information around what is contained in this portal. For example, a very detailed glossary, which explains all of the policing terms that we've done our best to standardize and transform for the community. We have a feedback section, which is built to continue to offer and capture feedback from our community. As they use the product, they can fill out this box and submit that information to my team. We also have a resources tab. This was very important to our organization as we wanted to continue to highlight some great programs we have related to community safety, such as the security camera registry, our neighborhood watch groups, Crime Stoppers, crime prevention details, our crisis resources, and victim support services. Lastly, on this list of tabs, we have our actual statistics page on wirepeak.ca for anyone who wants official statistics, as this dashboard is live and almost up to date on a daily. It's updated on a daily basis, in which case the data you see, some people might call them stats, are unaudited when you're using the actual real-time crime map or dashboards. With that, I'd like to dive into one of the first applications. Before I do that, I do want to acknowledge some great accessibility functionality that is built into this online cloud-based portal. On the left-hand side, there is a built-in translation feature. By clicking this, one can select any language out of this list of over 110 different languages. So I'll just jump through this list. We have Chinese. I'll just select that. You can see what that looks like on the portal as a user from the community can go through and have a better understanding of what they might find. I'll just select a couple other languages here, such as French. So you see how seamlessly this product adapts to the languages. And I'll pick one more for the community. I will jump to, let's say, Italian. So we can see how flexible and accessible this product is to all the various languages people speak throughout the York region. I'll jump back to English for the remainder of the demonstration. And I do want to provide full transparency that the map and dashboard applications that we've configured and built do not automatically switch as easily through these language options. That would require custom programming and building those products in those languages specifically. But the navigation is definitely improved with this translation capability. So if I move down this page, you'll see the applications at a glance. We have our two crime maps. We have the current crime map and a mobile version of this crime map. So the product is very accessible to people who want to use and then navigate through these crimes and this product from a mobile device. We do plan to enhance that, as this is mobile friendly, and we do want to move to a dedicated application. We have road safety maps, both desktop and mobile. Road safety allows us to provide more specific detailed information around the safety of our roads, as you will see later on in the demonstration. We have very simple, easy to use dashboards that give a simple and informative picture of the trends of crime in York region, both a crime trend dashboard and a road safety dashboard, which I'll also briefly demonstrate. And last but not least, at the bottom of the page, we have historical maps, which capture data from 2016 to 2020 for anyone who wants to conduct more detailed, in-depth analysis of crime in York Region. And last but not least, part of every current open data portal and platform is the ability to download the data for yourself, bring it into Excel automatically, and filter and work with that data any way you like. This will definitely be a huge hit for academics and anyone who wants to provide and summarize crime to their own needs. This will obviously reduce the impact on our Freedom of Information Department, who constantly receives requests like that to kind of work with this data. I'm going to move back up to the top and start off with our first application demonstration, starting with our simple crime trend dashboard. By clicking on this application, the crime trend dashboard will pop up. And as it loads, I will note some of the key features of this product. I'm just going to move over my images here so you can see the full screen. On this product, you will see 12 of the most serious crimes based on the Crime Severity Index of Canada that we are presenting to the public in as simple to understand terms as we could achieve at this point. These 12 indicators are demonstrated in different ways. So we have 4 different tabs at the bottom of this dashboard, allowing the public to see at a glance a 7-day view. So this will be the last 7 days of crimes in York Region. We have a 30-day view, a 180-day view, and I'll pause here for a moment on the 365-day view. This allows the public to easily understand, again, the trends. And looking at this dashboard, we see these key indicators such as assaults, attempted murders, break-and enters. The actual stat or the number of those at that current time that the dashboard was represented, I noted earlier, the data is updating on a nightly basis. As of 3 a.m., this data will usually be up to date. Things do change when you deal with live statistics. Events, occurrences transform, they change through investigations. So we will always be capturing those on a nightly basis. So the numbers may change throughout time. Key thing to look at on this dashboard are the indicators. We've included obvious indicators in different colors. Red means that crime category has gone up since the previous period, and green means that that category has come down. So for example, break and enters have come down approximately 30% from last year, the same time last year, showing a previous number of 1,832 break and enters compared to the current year, which is 1,290 break and enters. And you can see at a glance all these other indicators, what is up, what is down, what is more interesting as somebody who's interested in the safety and security of York Region. We do believe this needs to allow everyone in their different municipalities to interact with these numbers with respect to where they live. So we have one simple, easy to use municipal filter. So anyone from across the region can select their area, their town, and see what the crime indicators are in that area. So I'll just select Vaughan for easy demonstration. And looking at Vaughan, this is showing the indicators for Vaughan for the last 365 days. And we can see again, break and enters are down in Vaughan, but by not as much, by 13.7%. You can see weapons violations for firearms are down 12%, but you can see other items such as impaireds are up by 23%, or drug violations are up by 9%, etc. Again, easy use, easy to navigate. There is also the ability, I'm just going to reset our municipal filter to the district filter. Some of you are responsible or work with various district commands. And we know our 1 district command is responsible for multiple municipalities, as well as our 5 district commands. So if you select the district itself, this will summarize all of those areas under 1 district for a more clear and concise discussion around activities in 1 district. So the user, the community member can choose how they want to interact with these dashboards, whether it's by district or municipality. So I will turn off 1 district, go back to the full municipal view. And again, this really allows the public to have a great sense of the trends of crime and how crime is trending across York Region. With that, I'm going to jump into our next application demonstration. So I'm just clicking on the the Wirepeak logo to go back to our homepage. The users can use the back button to navigate as well. And this was again fully tested by our community beta testers. Looking at this page, as I scroll down, I will jump to our crime map demonstration using the desktop site. This will open up the new Wirepeak Crime Map. Now, this product was the most anticipated piece of this whole solution. And we had a very strong vision, as mentioned earlier, for the relationship to the police and our community and how we both can play a part in the safety of York Region. So as this loads, obviously this is a live demonstration, and of course a cloud-based solution. We don't normally take this long to have it load, so I'll see if I have it currently running on a different tab, which I do. So I'll just end that tab and see if I can work from this tab here. So this is the community safety map. As it loads, we will start off with the member of the public will have a 7-day view of all municipalities across the region. Looking at all these points, you can see them quite clearly. You can use your mouse to zoom in and out, or the plus and minus buttons to interact with the map. As the user zooms in and out on the map, the greatest feature we've had response to is the new charting capability. On the right-hand side, this chart will update dynamically as the user moves around and pans around through the region. So you will always have a great sense of the crimes you're looking at. For example, as I just happened to zoom in once the map loaded, for the last 7 days, we are looking at 10 assaults on the map, 1 break and enter, 5 drug violations, etc. So you can see that quite clearly and easily. As I zoom back out, have a look at the dynamic chart and see that that dynamic chart, looking at the whole region, has updated again, showing a total of 21 events for the last 7 days. So this is a great way to start off your review of the crime trends in your region, looking at the 7-day view, having a sense of what has changed and what is impacting your region currently, because as we know, crime trends and things are always changing. What I'll do for this next demonstration is take you through the perspective of a member of the community. So someone who lives in Vaughan, who wants to understand what is going on in Vaughan, what is going on around me in my municipality. So we would coach and encourage our users to use our municipal filter, our simple filter on the left, select the Vaughan municipality or the city of Vaughan. Looking at the current state range, we can see the last 7 days of crime in Vaughan. I will just look through this list. We have an easy filter for the dates. You can select, from a predefined list of 7 days, 30 days, all the way up to 365 days. Users can also enter a specific date range using the custom date range button. And as I scroll through this filter list, we have other capabilities to filter the crime types as they choose, for example, break and enters or assaults. And I will demonstrate a few of these other capabilities on the left below, such as violent crime, shootings, hate crimes, some features that have never existed in our crime map before. So looking at Vaughan, for the last 7 days, we see what is going on. We see there's 16 assaults, 7 break and enters, etc. I will change the date range to the last 60 days, and we'll see obviously a lot more crime showing up on the map, Vaughan being our most popular city in York Region when we think of population. So looking at the crime map, there's a lot more going on. And I'd like to, again, accentuate the details I have before me. I can see there are 757 events totally. You can never understand that by looking at a simple crime map. So this chart really simplifies that. If I was interested in break and enters, as I live maybe in the central part of Vaughan, I can zoom into that area and see this chart has updated. And there's 154 incidents in front of me at the moment. And if I was interested in break and enters, because I'd had some concerns and discussions with members in my community, I can simply click on this chart. It's an interactive chart. By clicking on the break and enters, I can see those on the map and exactly where they are. I've removed the noise of the other events, and I can focus on these. So by clicking on break and enters, you'll notice my ability to filter that map. Clicking on break and enters again unfilters the map quite easily, and I can move on to other events. I'd like to point out another very important feature that we really believe changes the game when it comes to engaging our community in investigations and the safety of their neighborhoods. And this is this new feature we have coined at York Regional Police called Community Safety Alerts. And this allows, these community safety alerts are specific and relative to where you focus your map on. And again, we're focused on Vaughan, so these are only the community safety alerts related to Vaughan and specifically related to people who live in this area I've zoomed in on. You'll notice there's a community safety alert for a robbery and there's a community safety alert for an attempted murder. And it's showing the dates and times of those events. I will click on the attempted murder first. By clicking on it, it zooms me into the area of the map where this attempted murder took place. And again, very close to where this person might live. And you'll notice that areas that assault has shown up on the map. So you can see, sorry, the attempt murder, the occurrence number is there for the member, the date and time of the event, the occurrence type was an attempted murder. The details for this are the same. You'll see the status of the case is now currently open. It happened outdoors, so not in a residence or a business. We are always plotting the nearest intersection. That's something to note for the privacy of York Region. This is not changed in our crime map. We are sanitizing the points of crime so that we are always at the nearest intersection for privacy. This happened in our 4-district location, Municipality of Vaughan, and this is obviously a violent crime, and that has been coded as a violent crime. There's an ability to click here and submit a Crime Stoppers tip just by clicking on that link. Crime Stoppers opens up, and if I felt more comfortable submitting a tip through Crime Stoppers because I might know something about this event, this is how to do it. I fill out this form and submit that tip. I'm going to go back to the crime map and note the other option here is to view crime prevention info. I will demonstrate that in a few seconds. I want to focus this point right here on how we can help solve this crime. So by clicking help solve this case, the member of the public is connected immediately to the details of the case that are always being posted by our Corporate Communications Bureau regarding the event itself. So the member of the public now sees what is going on in their neighborhood. They can read the details of the event, that there was a shooting that took place. They can see that there were 2 victims, and we are listing in all of these media releases whether or not there's a current investigation and how the community can help and who they might contact. So for this case, we're asking that they contact the 4-district Criminal Investigations Bureau. The extension is there. And again, if they are not comfortable to do that right through 4-district, they can submit a Crime Stoppers tip by calling in or clicking the link. So I'm going to go back to this point in this area on the map, noting again that easy ability for me to understand the details that are going on in my neighborhood that York Regional Police wants my help with if I have information. This is now a new way to interact with the community, making them feel a part of this investigation and the safety of their neighborhood. I'm going to close that map tip and show you a few other points. I'm going to go into that scenario of break and enters in this area and clicking on break and enters just to, again, understand how they are impacting my neighborhood. And if I zoom into this area and I note this subdivision in particular, we can see there's a break and enter in this subdivision. By clicking on this break and enter, I can see the details. I can see it's a residential break and enter. I can see it was solved, which is great to know. And again, it's focused on the nearest intersection. What I want to point out is something our team has done, which is automatically code all the relative crime prevention tips to these events. So by clicking on crime prevention for break and enters, you are taken to the break and enter crime prevention page, which provides a full list of crime prevention details to the public, how to perform a home audit security guide. We have a great video here that summarizes the event, summarizes great break and enter tips. By clicking play and watching this video, the member of the public can fully understand this. Unfortunately, the sound for this video may not play well, so I'm going to skip that for now, but I want to draw your attention to all of this great information. I'm going to step back to the crime map and take a look at some other crimes in the area. I will zoom back out and deselect break and enters so we can focus on the rest of the area of Vaughan. And while we're in Vaughan, I just want to go down through this list, and identify other ways the public can interact with this map. So let's say you're starting to get a sense that break and enters are a concern for yourself and your family or your neighborhood. You may also want to look at robberies. So what I'll do is I'll select break and enters from the left-hand panel filter. This will show all the break and enters in Vaughan. And I'm also going to select robberies. So this left-hand filter panel allows the public to interact with all the crime types they choose. And we are now mapping robberies and break and enters for the last 60 days. And we can see there are 88 break and enters and 11 robberies. They can navigate them. They can click on them to, again, learn more about what time of day they've happened and whether the status is open, closed, or if they're indoors or outdoors. I will reset that filter and show one other feature while I'm still in Vaughan. For members of Vaughan, everyone is interested and believes they need to watch out for violent crime and be aware of violent crime. So we've created a violent crime grouping. By clicking this occurrence flag called violent crime, they can see the violent crimes filtered for them automatically. So we can see the assaults, attempt murders, firearm violations, robberies, violations causing death, and weapons violations that have occurred in Vaughan over the last 60 days. You don't have to look through all these other websites or follow our social media to keep track of these. And we can see the community safety alerts that are still related to these violent crimes available for review. I'm going to uncheck violent crimes, and I will move to a different part of the region. I'm going to zoom out and change my filter on the left and give you a sense of all the shootings that have happened in your region. This was important to the executive command team. When we talk about transparency, they want to have the region more aware of the major events that are affecting the region. So we have created a shootings flag. Shooting is not a crime in itself. It is related to other crimes. So my team had to build a category that summarized all these shootings. So when I click the shootings occurrence flag filter and we take a look at a larger date range, so I'll look at the last 180 days, we'll see all the shootings that have happened across the region over the last 180 days because I've zoomed out and I've turned off my municipal filter. We can see these shootings have been related to 6 assaults, 4 attempted murders, 1 robbery, and 1 violation causing death. Again, you can click on any one of these to focus on those. So if you're wondering where these attempted murders happen, by clicking on them, we can see where they are on the map. And again, you can click on the point, see the details of this attempted murder, the date and time of the event, and dig into that a little further. For example, seeing this one happen in Richmond Hill. So just clicking off of that, this is again a new level of transparency. We have never, our previous crime map never had a shootings category. This shootings data is updated and vetted specifically through crime analysts in our organization who are confirming these are actual shootings, not accidental discharges. These are shootings that involve someone shooting at something or someone. I'll just go to the last occurrence flag for our demonstration, turn off shootings and look at hate crimes. This is again in partnership with our community services group. Superintendent Veripan wanted us to include more information around hate crime as it relates to the region. So we've got this hate crime grouping, and we will see the hate crimes that have happened related to our most primary offenses. I'm going to change the occurrence grouping here to all, to show all types of crime relating to hate crimes. And you'll see more details show up on the map. Again, being more transparent, including more crime types and more categories for the public. So we can see over the last 180 days, there have been 105 hate crimes related to assaults, mischiefs, persons crimes, provincial offenses, and sexual violations. If we're interested in where these mischiefs have happened, again, easy to click on mischiefs and see those in the region. We can zoom into maybe the neighborhood we live in. So if I live in Markham, I can look and see where these hate crimes related to mischief have taken place. I can click on them to see more details of this event. And this in particular was a mischief related to religious property hate. And you can see that this event is closed. The status of this case is closed, but obviously you can always follow up with the local district to ask more questions on this, relate to this case if you need to. I'm going to zoom back out and go down and turn off our hate crime filter and note our connection to digital evidence management and the ability for the community to provide information directly through our digital evidence management system. I'm going to turn off the mischief filter and select our submit digital evidence filter. This will show us the couple events in the region that have an open digital evidence management case. So in this case, there is on the help solve this crime list, our community safety alerts, there's a violations causing death where the public is being asked to submit digital evidence if they have any. I can click on the point itself and look at this list and see it was a violations causing death that happened outdoors in this particular area. I can zoom right into this area, by the way, so you can get a real sense of where this happened if you're not sure. And we also have the ability to change the layers and go into York Region imagery. So by clicking on York Region imagery, you can have an even better sense of the area this has taken place, where this has taken place, the type of neighborhood and home. I'm going to click on help solve this case. And that will take us to the DEM system, integrating with this DEM system automatically, and now providing the member of the public the ability to see the details. This was a motor vehicle collision that went off the road, striking pedestrians in the city of Vaughan back in May. And you can click submit digital evidence to provide more information to officers at York Regional Police and our 4 District Bureau. I'm going to close that point and zoom back out from our digital evidence submission functionality and take you through a few other features found at the bottom of the screen. And I will turn off our base map layer and go back to our street layer, our street view. At the bottom of the map, you will see we have a map tab, a time period tab, an occurrence by municipality tab, occurrence by type, and occurrence per population. These are a list of quick tabs, quick charts that helps the people of York Region better understand the crime they are looking at in their neighborhood. So for this quick demonstration, I'm going to focus on Markham. And so let's say I live in Markham and I'm interested in crime for the last 180 days. And I zoom in on this area a little bit further. We can see again all of these crimes that have happened in the last 180 days. By clicking on the time period tab, we can see the day of week and the hour of day of these crimes. And if I'm really interested in break and enters, I can click on that filter once again and see the day of week and time or hour of day that break and enters are more likely to happen in Markham over the last 180 days. So as members of the public, they can see that the early morning hours have had a high spike, as well as times throughout the day, such as 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. And we can see Fridays have been the most popular day for break and enters in Markham over the last 180 days. So that's a quick summary. We can see the occurrences by municipality. We're seeing these break and enters in Markham. I'm going to turn off break and enters so we can see all the other crimes that have happened in Markham over the last 180 days. So these are a breakdown of all these crimes that have happened over the last 180 days. If you want to see a chart format, we have the occurrence by type and occurrence per population ratio that are also easy and available. Last but not least, I'm going to jump out of this screen and take a quick look at the road safety map. I don't want to leave that out. So looking at the road safety map, by clicking on this road safety map, members of the public will now have a great understanding of the safety of the roads in York Region, which is again a shared responsibility. The map works almost exactly the same as the previous map. You will see the road safety occurrence types are specific to road safety, such as careless driving, impaired driving, stunt driving, fatal collisions. We have the ability to map and visualize impaired operations, cyclist-related injuries, pedestrian-related injuries, and again, still the ability to view and submit digital evidence with respect to road safety items. The map is a little bit delayed in opening here. The chart would normally update here, and this is where I kind of laugh with a live demonstration. Not everything runs according to plan. I'm going to try one more time to restart the page and see if that helps. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next part of the, or to wrap up this presentation. Last chance here to look at the road safety map. Going once, going twice. What I will do is try and bring up the road safety dashboard to give you a sense of one of the new features, which is the high collision intersections across York Region. I'm going to go back to the landing page and take a look at, let me just close a few of these tabs here. I might have stressed my computer out with all of these tabs in this demonstration. We'll go back to the landing page and see if I can get into the dashboard for road safety and trends. Very similar to the crime dashboard, the road safety dashboard has our variances for these key indicators across York Region. So again, impaired, stunt driving, dangerous driving for 7, 30, 180 days. We have a fatal occurrences tab, which gives the member of the public and yourselves the ability to see fatalities across the region for the last 365 days. You can see those that involved alcohol or not. There was only one in the last 365 days that involved alcohol, and the fatalities as they affected cyclists, pedestrians, drivers, passengers. I'll jump over to the intersections tab to give you a sense of this, again, new functionality that gives us a sense of which intersections are experiencing the highest volume of collisions. So when we look at the full region, you can see Yonge and Green Lane has the highest volume of collisions, Major Mackenzie second. You can click on any of these points and it highlights them on the map for us. But if you live in, for example, Markham, you can select your municipality and the chart will update. And we are now looking at the highest collision intersections for Markham. I'll uncheck McCowan and Highway 7. You'll see McCowan and Highway 7 is the #1. Woodbine and John Street is #2. And you can go through the list and see those points on the map. So with that, I will just see if there is anything else I need to cover. I believe I've walked through all of the key and core functionality. Again, sorry if it seemed a bit rushed and we weren't able to look at the road safety map. Deputy, would you like me to take one more chance at the road safety map, or are we?
No, I think we're good, Greg. No, so thank you, Greg. I do appreciate your exuberance, and obviously we're extremely excited about the entire product line and being able to be more engaging with our community. With that, I do thank you and the entire team over the last year for all of your efforts. It has been quite the endeavor to get us from a vision to an actual product to be launched during Crime Prevention Week. So I will turn it over back to you, Chair Bevilacqua, for any questions that the board may have or any comments.
Yes, thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. Any questions? Okay, Ms. Fang, you have one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mauricio. Thank you, Paolo and team. This is a wonderful presentation and wonderful tool, state of the art. And I just have two quick questions, please. One is, I think the goal is to engage community, and that's wonderful. And recently, I think actually through Mofada, and I came across a community-based I don't know what to call it, my neighbors or something. And a lot of the people join this platform, and then they send out alerts, they ask for help, all that kind of thing. And recently, a couple of times, because I set some alert, and I noticed that they actually give neighbors alert, okay, there's some theft over vehicle on the driveway, and the camera actually took picture of those images, and then they share with the neighbors. So I'm just wondering, in the process of developing this tool, if our team have come across this type of community-based apps, I think, and somehow is it in our plan to work with them? Because I think it's a great awareness that these community-based apps should know YRP actually has this tool, and also they could support each other in terms of sharing data, alert, and all that. I'm just thinking out loud. So that's question number one. And question number two is, I'm wondering if we also keep track of mental health calls and domestic violences, because this two somehow is very near to community members as well. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Member Fang. And I'll answer the first question, and then I'll turn over the second question to Greg. We are quite alive to the neighborhood community app. I'm actually on it. My wife is on it. She shares it with me all the time. And our plan is really to have greater consultation with that group, because there is a great forum and opportunity that we can definitely leverage through the community safety portal to actually augment that engagement with our community. So to your point, that is definitely on our roadmap to actually look into and see if we can incorporate. And as per the second question, I'll turn it over to Greg in terms of the actual detail of our mental health calls and domestic calls.
Thank you, Deputy, and thank you for that question. I'd like to just point out that the focus of the crime map is to focus on crime, and obviously domestic related calls, a call for service for a domestic related item or incident is obviously a private matter. However, if there is a crime at a domestic call for service, it is usually and definitely categorized in one of those categories you saw during the demonstration. So all those domestic incidents are related perhaps to an assault or some other crime. So they are represented. We do not specifically identify those which have happened between members of the family, so have a domestic nature. We can, however, through consultation thus far, provide a dashboard or a future product that summarizes these types of calls for service as related to the second part of the question, mental health calls, as again a non-criminal event, and we are not demonstrating non-criminal events. For example, this site does not demonstrate or visualize things like suicides either. So things that are very private in nature will not be visualized on the map, but we are and have heard feedback so far with respect to summarizing those types of calls for service. As we agree, it is important for the public to have a sense of the volume. We just have discussions and concerns around visualizing those to specific locations. Hopefully that helps and addresses the question. Thank you.
I have a question in reference to, like, I mean, when you were, first of all, great presentation, as I stated earlier, as you were showing us the maps and you had all those circles, right? At some point, there were a lot of circles, right? And it looked like really, really crowded. And I hope that the portal itself provides some context that, you know, we're talking about a population of like over 1.2 million people. And, you know, what I saw on the map sometimes could be sort of an overrepresentation, if you know what I mean. It geographically it takes up a lot of space, but it's only a circle and represents one, right? So the reason why I say this is that I just, like, if I was looking at that map and I saw all those circles and occupying a large geographical area, I would say, wow, this is not good at all. And I'm not saying that it's not, it's a good thing. I'm just saying, I just hope that people visually don't get anxious about seeing all those circles. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if I'm expressing myself well, but I just think that it could create sort of anxiety if people do not understand the context. That's the only thing I'm saying. So, like, for me, a reminder that, you know, you're dealing with a very large population, and I don't know whether that's something that you put on the front end of the portal, or you describe, like, the community, what's all about. Like, it's very important for people to know that they live in this, you know, one of the safest areas in North America, for example, right? And so when they go on that screen, they're not alarmed. I don't know if you have any comments on that. And then I'm going to go to Mayor Pellegrini right after the answer.
So to your comment and question, Chair Bevilacqua, we are very mindful of the optics and the perception of crime as it relates to those data points. And from a community perspective, obviously seeing quite an extensive amount of points obviously could lead a member of a neighborhood or a community to feel that it is unsafe. And we are very mindful of that optic and that perception within our community. So from our perspective, from a development perspective, there are pieces in there that we do incorporate to address those concerns, and obviously to satisfy the community that York Region is still one of the safest communities within all of Canada.
Yeah. You know, and it's great that you're being more transparent and accountable. That's, you know, I have no problem with the major objective. It's very sound, great principles, but sometimes, you know, images can kind of create emotional reactions that are not necessarily contextualized. And so that's a concern. Mayor Pellegrini, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been doing quite a bit of work with your crime prevention, your neighborhood watch, Richard McCarty, who is retired. Your slide, one of them said it, data-driven. If people don't know, and you've got to do this when you launch this, that it's crucial that people report, even if their cars are just, they lose a pair of sunglasses out of their cars. The ultimate goal is that at some point you will be able to predict right where crime is going to happen. And the only way that'll happen is if there is data in the business intelligence tool. So I'm a big advocate of where York Region's going. They are one of the leaders in BI, and I hope that with the message you can continue. And very much what Chair Bevilacqua says, I tell people we are extremely safe, but we need to work at being safer. And this is the way we do it. Report everything so that we can feed that beast so that we'll know when the next crime will happen before it happens. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. And if I could just offer one comment through you, Chair. The premise behind this is really a vision that community safety and well-being is a shared responsibility. So that advocacy from our police service to our community to really inform them is really the crust and what's behind this actual community safety data portal.
Yeah, and let me just add to that, Paulo, is that, you know, Chair, you mentioned the communication strategy at the front end of this is extremely important. But just be mindful of the fact that we have had crime maps, which we're reporting to the community before. Although this one is much more detailed and much more interactive, community was aware before of what crimes were occurring on a mapping tool. It just wasn't as robust as our BI tool. And having it linked to our crime prevention officers, so there is some work power behind the tool itself, not just a tool that's just out there. Will be key to having a resource available to deal and speak with the community. And Mayor Pellegrini brings up a great point about Neighborhood Watch. This is an amazing tool for more Neighborhood Watch programs to start up in the region to help the community help themselves. So those are my comments, and I know you have other questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Any other questions or comments? Chair Emerson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Bevilacqua, but I believe Mr. Purcell had a question before I did, and then I will go after. I know Mr. Purcell's been waiting to come on too.
Okay, Mr. Purcell, sorry, I didn't see that. Here you go.
Thank you, and thank you, Chairman. Just a quick note, brilliant presentation of capabilities. And just to follow on to where the chief took this, and that's my question, the communication and marketing plan to roll this out. This speaks elegantly to the Inspector General's presentation, as also the Deputy Chief's comments about the participation of the community with the force. And it also happens to speak incidentally to rationalizing the budget and the budget presentation. But again, just if there's a word or a sentence or a short statement on what is the marketing and communications plan to make 1 million people in York Region aware that this tool is available, because its functionality is brilliant, but its applicability is only as useful as its uptake rate.
Good question. Yes. Anybody want to answer that question?
I can, and I through you, Chair Bevilacqua, we do have a communication strategy and plan in terms of our marketing, in terms of getting the most outreach to our community as possible. And that is in relation to further town halls and through our own corporate communications, a whole media strategy in terms of social media and other media events that we really do want to sort of advocate for the use and for the community engagement in relation to the use of this. So we do have a plan over the next month. And it really starts with the Crime Prevention Week starting November 8th. So that is the start of the actual launch. And then the communication strategy and uptake from there will occur over the next several months.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purcell. Chair Emerson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great presentation and great job you're doing, and thank you for this. on slide 6, you have external external people get involved. I wonder if you did mention York Region in one of your statements, but I'm wondering whether York Region should be one of the external ones. We do work with your YRP regarding roads and other things. So just so that's aware going forward. In the recommendation is that the board receive this report, but I'm wondering whether it can be sent to the 9 municipalities. This is very crucial to them. A lot of my colleagues are on social media, and this is how you get the word out as best you possibly can. At least this is available for people to look up and go through. I have no idea how you fumbled or got your way through all that data, because I would not even have a clue on what you did pushing all those buttons and making all this stuff come up. It's too bad I'm too old to go through all that stuff, but I mean, it's very interesting how you got from all over and looked at all the dots, and you know, I was kind of impressed, really impressed, but I'm not that techie and never will be. I guarantee it. But anyways, thank you. But I'm just wondering how we can get this to the 9 local municipalities, because they're very interested. And like I say, a lot of them, which I'm not, are on social media, and that goes, they have a lot of followers. But anyways, thank you, Mr. Chair. But at the time of the motion, I'll gladly move the recommendation. And I think Ms. McCullough probably has a question too. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciated the question and comments from our youthful chair. Mr. McCullough, you're next. We unfortunately cannot hear you right now. Are you on mute or?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect. We can hear you perfect.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, so it's more of a comment than a question. And when you talk about value for your dollars, I think this certainly falls into that category, and very impressive. I don't think that this would cause any chaos or any uncomfortable feelings for the community. I think younger people will see this as absolutely phenomenal, and they will probably be interested. So within the context of this particular presentation, I know that drug overuse and opioids have been a huge problem in all the communities. And since drugs use is a victimless crime, is there any place in this particular project where in this does drug use fall, since it's not a crime, on your map? So you would have areas where people do safe places. How do you put this on your map? How do people know that this is happening in their particular communities?
Greg, I'll turn that one to you.
Deputy, and thank you for the question. With respect to drug use, when it comes to criminal drug matters, there are categories for drug violations on the map, as well as in our dashboards. Those are key areas. Again, I apologize for rushing through that, but with more time, we could focus on those. With respect to just safe drug use and drug use that is not criminal, right. I would leave that to the organization and further consultation with these communities that we have worked with and partner with to discuss the best way to share that type of information, which is critical to the youth and the people who live in your region. So take that definitely under advisement.
Thank you.
And thank you, Greg. Sorry. I was just going to add a comment to Chairman Emerson's question.
Sure, go ahead.
The intent was to obviously provide the presentation to the board, and obviously our next steps is actually to council and to obviously each municipality to present this to.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have, Ms. Fang, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mauricio. If you may indulge me for one more quick question or comment, please.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I think, again, it's a great tool, and I know the primary objective is to engage communities. That's shared responsibility. But I'm wondering if our police servicing, our ECT, also use these tools to direct our resources. So I'm thinking, as I look at the map, and you see the real time where the crime and the trending, and it's so obvious with the bar chart. So for example, we see theft of motor vehicle and assaults kind of like being increased quite a bit, again, in relative terms. So how nimble are our leaders in redirecting our resources according to these real-time trends, so that we could pivot our resources to tackle those increasing trend at the moment, 30-day or 60-day or 100 days. So I'm just thinking out loud there. Maybe we have another similar tool being used within the services, but I think this is very much connecting when what the community sees. You would imagine the community will expect our resources being put towards those increasing crime trends. Thank you.
Ms. Fang, I can answer that one. Yes, we do have very similar tools running in our real-time operations center, and also running, each district commander has the ability to do very similar searches with their district crime analysts. And as you can imagine, each district has its own set of needs, different from the regional perspective. And during those weekly district crime management meetings, this is exactly what occurs. We determine there at the district level what resources need to be placed where at the appropriate time based on data. And we also have the ability in real time through the real-time operations center, if there's something going on in any community where it needs further resources from even one district to another, we will move those resources based on the needs out in the field, crime or otherwise. So yes, short answer is yes, there are other data tools, BI tools that are being used by command in our real-time operations center, and we're quite fluid in how we move our resources around.
Great to know. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thanks, Fang. Thanks, Chief. We have the motion that the board receive this report and a presentation for information related to the New York Regional Police Community Safety Data Portal to be launched during Crime Prevention Month, November 2021. That was moved by the chair, seconded by, who we have somebody, okay, let's see, we have Steve Serrano. Thank you so much. All those in favor? Against, motion carries. Unfinished business, we have none. Other business, is there any other business that the board would take? No? Okay. Like to convene a private meeting for the purpose of considering confidential items pertaining to legal and personal matters in accordance with Section 35(4) of the Police Services Act. I have a motion to do that. Chair, thank you. Ms. Fang, thank you.
Mr. Chair, before you go out, I think you need to add a number 6.8 regarding cyber attack. I believe